tonight, and due to COVID, several people at work were out, and so she has to work extra, but she said to say hi, and she wants to jump back in when she can. And for those who, Josh Denton was looking forward to being here, and his dog had some surgery, and he'll be here. It looks like it's going to be okay, but he needs to be there. And a third person, and I'm trying to remember the name, somebody was assigned to the committee 2 months ago, and he was part of Seacoast, New Hampshire. Well, I don't want to say because he sent me an email that he had to be out of town and he looked forward to being here again. And if anybody remembers his name, I need to look up my email. But those three people did communicate. And Wes Tater said he was going to be here tonight, but I don't see him. So those are the people I know who did communicate.
Wes is what? Is he coming back on committee?
He said, no, he said he wanted to present the carbon tax and dividend, I think something in relationship to that. And but since he's not here, we'll just go for it.
All right, on to the minutes. And this is on Zoom now, just as an FYI as well.
I have a question on the minutes. Becca, were you here last month?
I was not.
Okay, so that's what I thought, but seeing how you are here, I could ask you my own. So that was, is there, does anybody else have a list of the minutes? And are they, the attendees as they are stated?
Why don't I just read through them quickly, Larry, and you can see.
I have them. Bert, Josh Denton, Ben Doyle, Sean Kennedy, Lawrence LaRiviere, Effie Malley, Gabe Weintraub, and Evie without a last name.
Who else was here?
I was here. I was here.
Yeah, this is my fault because I added the names. Ben did an excellent job in the minutes, and I added the names, but I never wrote down who was here, so I was just going from memory. So
Is it Jesse or Jess?
Jess is fine. Jess Blasco.
Glasgow. And
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee.
Mhm.
And how do we spell this?
Lore.
L-O-R-I-E?
Loreley.
L-E-Y. That's your first name?
Yes.
And it's your last name?
Godfrey. G-O-D. F-R-E-Y.
S-R-E-Y?
F-R-E-Y.
F-R-G-Y?
E-Y.
I am hard of hearing, you know,
You got it.
so you know that
Evie's last name is Douglas.
Great,
If that's,
thanks, Ben.
if that's of any interest.
Oh, and here's Aubrey, just in time.
And Steve was here last time he was raising his hand.
I was here.
Aubrey, were you here last week?
He was
No,
not.
last month? I'd caught what Bert has.
Set it to. Is Steve not on there? Steve, just
Steve
put
is
Steve
listed
and I'll
as a
fill it in.
guest.
You put Steve, who?
Steve and Aubrey. Steve DeTroy.
And Jess.
Oh,
Oh, I was a guest. Oh, yeah. I'm probably not officially on the committee.
and other John was here.
John Cardy.
John Cardy.
Was a guest.
Yeah.
John was here.
I haven't officially
John
submitted
also
my
sent you that
request.
thank you
Yeah,
here.
I actually have it in here, so I just need to finish it.
That's it. Thank you
but-
very much. Can I keep your list so I can update it?
Yeah. Yes.
So with that, I think we have attendance from the minutes. Was there any other feedback on the minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Second. All right, we're going to vote. Did everyone vote in favor of accepting the minutes from last month? Objections? Minutes are passed. Going through the list. The CAP update. I'm not sure who put that on or who would like to speak to it.
I guess I can start. So that's the subcommittee with Effie and Steve and John Cardy and I that we've been working on just reviewing caps and gathering information to help Peter with the RFP. So at this point, we've identified a whole bunch that we liked. We presented to this group last week about some of the details and things that we've seen in effective caps. And now we are reaching out to some of those cities to talk to people who were part of designing and building those caps and just gleaning information and knowledge from them about what worked, what didn't, what would they change, so we can be as informed as possible as we help Peter on the next steps. I know personally I have a couple meetings next week with cities. I think John is in the same boat, so hopefully we will have information soon and can keep moving forward. I don't know if there's anything else either of you would want to add to that.
Peter, we had talked about an RFQ at first, but then you had decided that it might be possible to go another route at least.
Yeah, I think we've got to talk more about it. But
Okay.
One of the ideas we talked about was an RFQ before we did an RFP, which is a request for qualifications that you send out just to get people to throw their name in the hat, kind of, and give their qualifications. But I think time-wise, it might be a little tight, so we talked about maybe doing a pre-announcement and maybe even a pre-meeting to see if people want to come and hear about it and maybe ask questions before we release RFP. Certainly after we release the RFP, we'll do that.
So the RFQ is before the RFP?
It would be before, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the benefit of doing it another way would be maybe a quicker process and maybe a little bit less formal of just gauging interest.
Yeah, and I think the timing, if we want to start in June or July, we're not going to have enough time to do both, it seems like.
And just from a personal note, I kind of feel like I'll just go out on a limb, I kind of feel like have a good base of knowledge. I would say that we are pretty close to drafting, or starting to draft that. I think so. I think we're there, but that's just my opinion. So maybe others on the subcommittee think differently. So we're making good progress.
Great.
Anyone else?
Thanks for your work on that. That's fantastic.
Thanks all of you guys, yeah.
I had to miss the last meeting because I was taking the carbon footprinting at the UNH Institute on Sustainability. So, and then we didn't have it yesterday because we're meeting today. So, but I agree with Steve that we have a lot of what we need to do some drafting.
Excellent. Any other comments on that? All right. Portsmouth Climate Solutions.
I'll fill in if anybody who is there wants to talk a little bit about it. Because just to set a context, Portsmouth Climate Solutions was looking to be a support for the city to adopt a climate action plan. What is delightful to hear and experience is that it's already got legs, is on the way, it's going to happen. So then the question becomes Portsmouth Climate Solution, which had as its activity to help get the city to adopt a climate action plan, now says that mission is already there. Where do we go? That's good news. So the main thing that any climate action plan, if it's going to be effective, has to have community engagement. So the group, very small but very, I think, knowledgeable and effective people are working to say, how do we get community engagement to accelerate moving towards a climate safe plan? And it's so big, how do you get it down to be specific? How do we get it down so that it has meaning? How do we get it down so we use the limited resources that we have to get leverage from a systems point of view. And we have, almost everybody on the committee is a powerhouse in terms of their connections. One of those people who I highly admire is sitting directly opposite me and brought something about how to get maybe one way to look at that, and it was encouraging. And if you want to pick up the ball from there, that would be helpful.
Sure, we had a really lively meeting last night. The meetings are an hour long, and Bert is really good with start and finish. And, you know, when I was first talking about climate action plan with you all, I was thinking community engagement was getting people's input to what should go in the plan, you know, getting them to come to meetings, do surveys. But as we looked at climate action plans, what Bert refers to community engagement is much bigger. It's how do we get households, businesses, organizations to do climate action, like make lifestyle changes that we've all talked about and we know about. And it was one of those things on the internet, going down a rabbit hole and not know where it's leading me. And I was on the site for Albany, California, because that's the one I'm going to follow up with for our subcommittee. And I noticed they had their community interface had a name on it called Bright Action at the bottom, like powered by Bright Action. So I clicked on it to find out what it was. And it's an app just for this purpose. And then I went back to the Albany community website as if I were going to sign up. I was a household interested in making a difference. And almost immediately, when I was setting my account up, it said, "Do you live in Albany, California?" And sometimes I lie, but this time I didn't. And it said, "If you don't, click here." So I clicked there. And it took me to a page where I could put in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And it opened up, I could set up a profile and choose actions. You can be very complete with your profile, like put in what your gas bill and if you have oil and what kind of cars you have and how much you drive, how much you fly, kind of thing. But then the site, the app called Bright Action, has teams and community networks or something, community groups. So I wrote to the one group that's set up on the Portsmouth page to say, you know, who are you? Because I forget what it was called. And I haven't heard back from them yet. But a lot of it is pretty standard because we know from Drawdown and other places what things would make a difference if a lot of people did them, whether it's like in the main category of building or in the category of transportation. Those are the two big areas. And there's a lot we wouldn't have to wait for a climate action plan to be working with people to get the word out and get things started. So, and I'm not saying Bright Action is it. There are a couple of other apps like this, but it's really great. And the group last night was going on and trying it, and this week everyone's going to be researching it and giving it a trial run kind of and coming back next week. Bert, was that a fair summary, or did I miss
I would
things?
say anybody here who wants to take a look, feel free to go on and join us next Wednesday, 7 to 8. And I'll put another little context on that. It was probably Peter, who was it on our committee? It might have been the lawyer. Wanted a list of things to do to put on our website that people could do. It was back in the days when, you know, books were coming out, 101 things you can do for the environment, and there was lists. What blows me away and actually encourages me is when I went on this Bright Action, which is, as Effie says, one of many, they don't give you a list. They give you, how many cars do you have? How do you have a bicycle? And then they get you your whole, they'll set you up with your own carbon footprint. And then they will say, if you eat, they ask you diet. If you eat plant-based meal a week, you say, and you can earn points.
Right action.
So this is already, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can just get something like this going. And what Effie brought in the previous week from Concord, if you got enough points, you can go down and get an ice cream cone. So it builds community. So it's kind of, we've always been looking how to make it grounded. And that's the kind of thing that I think we're doing, and everybody's invited to come look at that and give your input, because we're trying to look at where do we get the biggest bang for our buck with something that's doable now and build on it so that we get the cultural shift that we need, which is what I think Portsmouth Climate Solutions does.
So the website is brightaction.app/New Hampshire/user.
Is New Hampshire spelled out?
Oh,
You can go to,
Somebody
so you
do
just
a
go to
Google.
/New Hampshire, it pulls up with all the info.
If we're on Zoom, we can put it in the chat, but somebody threw a poll. Peter has a list of
And
everybody.
even, oh yeah, you already did.
When I did this,
So it's cool, and it's like a lot of the climate action plans that we've already looked at
she's been making
had pages like this, like when we went to Cooler Concord.
She has been.
They
She's been
had,
busy.
want to do something, okay, click here, and it takes you to, you can do this, you can do this, you know, and that's what this app has set up. So, and I don't know if it costs. We haven't yet gotten that far. So this is just initially, but, you know, here we've talked about having 2 tracks with the climate action plan, because it probably won't be ready to implement until early 2024, I'm guessing. I don't know. And in the meantime, we can be doing things, especially having this group, Portsmouth Climate Solutions, to work with. So,
you know where that is.
There's a committee in Portsmouth called Neighborhood Action Committee or something like that. They're doing, right now, I think the meeting was last night, I'm not sure. They're doing surveys of the different wards. So they're having neighborhoods get together and discuss topics within their neighborhoods. And that committee has been running for a number of years. I just don't happen to live in an area that belongs to one, so I'm not
yeah,
part of it. I tried to start one, but we have only like 45 homes in the area I live,
yeah.
so we don't get a lot of participation.
Well, it's
Mostly
great.
old people, but-
Because an app like this, you can set up teams or community groups. And, you know, we looked at a site and there was a church or a school, you know. So it seems like it's very flexible and might work for us.
It's good, Effie.
I'm on it now.
Yeah.
No, I'm on it too.
Very intuitive, yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cool, yeah.
The other thing about the climate, oh my gosh, I brought 2 Portsmouth Climate Solution. You all know about the book, how many know about the book Regeneration? I'm about to bring my copy.
Oh, sure.
Oh, it is. Thank you. I looked, I said, because of the
facilitating.
same color, I said, all right, Regeneration. I want to just bring our committee, for those who aren't aware, this is the solutions. And that's what we need from an eco-municipality. We got the big principles, the natural step. We have the solutions. Now, why would Bill McKibben come out and make another whole book after Drawdown? Does anybody know?
Walking on there?
What? Yeah, Paul, who did I say? Bill
Bill
McKibben.
McKinnon?
Well, because Bill McKibben and I was just reading about him. So thank you, Larry, for, I'm just seeing if you were awake. Okay. I do that frequently, so anybody, please feel free to help me along. And Paul Hawken wrote this book, and he's talking about what we want to do. Get to a climate-safe planet in 1 generation. Is that 10 years? 20 years?
No, it's more than
30?
generations, it's 20-something.
All right, 20-something. He wants to get there by 2050. So, what is he doing? And I'm saying, that's a big task. I haven't read the book. I've gone through pieces of it. But I'm getting this email saying, the Waggle. How many have seen the Waggle? The Waggle. And I said, why am I getting another piece like this? And this is from Regeneration. And he is in the Waggle each week when I'm getting it. He has sections that are taking us intersection of natural and virtual world. And then he embeds articles, or they embed articles. So they have a team who's sorting through this stuff. And I can tell you, I say, I used to, my way to read a book was I'd open it to 3 pages. And if every page I read, if I got through 3, I'd say, okay, I read it. I'm hitting these things, I'm saying, this stuff I don't know. So what I'm feeling, and why I bring it up in terms of the CAP and Portsmouth Climate Solution, we are truly creating the path as we walk it. And when I said this weekend, what am I looking forward to? I need to slow down and make sure, to the best of my ability, I'm taking in that which is going to help us get where we need to go. Because I don't know anybody who knows how to get there. But there's so much going on and really exciting stuff. And I just thought I'd say about the wagon in case somebody else is that. So, anything else about Portsmouth Climate Solution?
Well, we're still talking about a climate fair, but, you know, if we're going to have an app that we want to get out in the community, it would make sense to have that in mind before we have the fair, I think.
And I would raise one other thing. Rotary International. I'm looking on the Drawdown website. Drawdown Rotary, they have now become part of the initiative for sustainability. I would have never put those two together. We have somebody on our Portsmouth Climate Solutions in the Rotary. She was in the Rotary, didn't even know that this is the 100th year anniversary. They're putting out $100,000 and they're giving grants to sustainability. And they have a whole sustainability agenda. The reason I bring it up, Peter, you might know more about this if it's too late, but I was thinking we could probably get a grant from Rotary. Mm-hmm. If we were to get a grant that said, we want, and by the way, the conference, I'm going all over the place because this is, when we had the symposium, the woman from UNH said they were having sustainability fellows. Is that what they call them? No. If we could get a sustainability fellow, get a grant from the Rotary, which I don't think would be that difficult, to pay part of that salary, and then give it to the city and have them be, we were talking about a website for Portsmouth Climate Solutions. Mm-hmm. Do you know about the process and how?
Yeah, they're starting now. The fellows are starting in end of June, so the application process starts in like November. But we could do that in November. We've had like 2 or 3 fellows in the past from UNH. They're great. You pay half. UNH pays half of their salary over the summer, and I think or not just their salary, there's overhead and different things, but I think it was like $5,000 or $6,000 we paid. Over the years, it went up a little bit, but they're excellent because those fellows have to apply to be part of for the projects that are listed. So first, we send in our project, and then the Sustainability Institute says, we'll take your project. So if we say we want to do whatever we want to do, they say, okay, that sounds like a good project. We'll put it out there and see if anybody applies to it. Then the fellows apply for specific projects, but it's a pretty big pool. Then UNH narrows it down to 2 or 3 candidates that then each community or organization interviews for the fellow. And then if they find one they like, then they come work for them for the summer. And they're doing it now, so they have the summer program, but I think they're also trying to do a year-round program.
Yeah, so I was trying to think if we wanted to get it on board for the summer. And I was thinking about, and I'm throwing this out there because everything now is, we're used to 2, 3, 4, 5-year lag times. And I noticed, Kate, you put on a conference that's coming up. We heard about it last night. In a year. But I'm thinking, I throw this out to the Eco Club. Is there anybody who's graduating who would want a summer job? Who would, I'm just trying to think about somebody who wants and would be skilled, and if we got a little grant and we had an Eco Club person who wanted a summer job rather than working at the IHOP, if you could get the same money, or flatbread, we could get you the same money and you could be working on that. Would that be something?
Do you only want someone that's graduated or graduating?
I want to get your and my and all of our kids' futures, so I want whatever I'm throwing. This is coming off the top of my head. So,
Yeah. I mean, I would say Maya's graduating. She's not here tonight, but that's from Eco Club. I mean, I would be interested too, but I'm not graduating.
But I tell you, or somebody, if you saw, maybe I think it's better in an individual to get a team. If there were 2 people to work together on something like this, just keep that open. And also, Maya's been on the committee for how many years? 1 or 2 years now?
Quite a while.
I do not remember.
A little over a year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I brought this book around, and I thought if she was here tonight, we could all sign it for her and give it to her. But I still think we could all sign it, and
We can get it to her.
Yeah,
at
we
the
can
high school.
deliver it to her.
we
We
can
see
deliver
her.
it to her. So, well, I'll send it around. I'll write
It's
something.
the same for me. It's a little bit over a year.
All right? Anything else you want to say?
All over LinkedIn.
Why?
All right. Next item is the report to City Council. Any takers?
Well, when I sent out the agenda, I sent out the report that was put together by the middle school students under Chris Rose, the teacher there. Their copy. That asked them, what did he ask them specifically? Come up with a climate solution in Portsmouth, basically, right? See how he worded it.
That's not the cover letter, that's the teacher's
Cover letter, yeah. The most impactful energy proposals that the 8th grade students develop for our city. So,
8th grade, that means what, 13 years old?
so I just sent it out, and the city council, and Kate can speak to this a little more if there was more discussion, but the city council made a motion, Chris Rose presented it to the city council, and the council made a motion that they get a report back from the sustainability committee on the proposals that the students put together.
Oh, I saw that.
And there's the top one, so there's 7 in there
And
that we all got.
I would say that there wasn't a lot of discussion at the city council level. We were just so thrilled to receive these and so excited about them. And the city council immediately thought that sustainability was the right place for these to go, and have sustainability look at them, reflect on them, any thoughts, and report back to the council.
Got a letter from Chris, the social studies teacher, and I think we're right on target in terms of communication. And I think what it would be good to do, if we will take a look at these, Josh put into our city's proposals, the energy plan, and it would be nice to look at these and see if they were in sync with the ones that are already in place and synergize that this is coming from the middle school, this is what the experts came at here, so as we make presentations, it starts to build what we want is that synergy of everybody looking and moving it forward. So I haven't looked at that yet, and there's one copy of it.
It was sent out in the email when I sent out the agenda last week.
I just chose to print it out because I can understand, it's just me, but I get more out of reading a hard copy than I do of reading it off of a computer.
So I did take a look at those proposals. I just did a brief notes for myself here. Some of them deal with solar power on private buildings. Some of them are more public. So I think it's going to tie into maybe item 6, renewable energy opportunities,
Yeah.
pretty well. So I'll just maybe leave it at that because we could kind of, I think maybe the goal here is to see how we can, I mean, it's tough to say, you can't tell a private person to put solar panels on a specific building, but we certainly can incentivize that.
Right.
So I think that's how it's going to tie into the upcoming item on the agenda. So, yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there was ones that had them on top of water.
Yeah.
One that had solar trees, which was really interesting. I looked it up in the Singapore.
Voltaics, I've never heard that before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What is it?
Float voltaics.
Yeah. They were
Photovoltaic.
photovoltaics, yeah.
Float, I see. Okay. Which is for the picture here, and this is of the, I believe, the North Mill Pond, looking from Bartlett Street towards Maplewood Avenue. And they're showing these all in the pond. And the thing of it that gets me is that these are 13-year-olds. These are 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
Think about the aspect of thinking out of the box. Just give it to the kids to do. You know, I've been reading to kids, and I've been reading them to little kids, and I'm reading them stories of working together as a team to do something. And this is amazing that this many out of the 8th grade came up with the stuff that they did. I know that there are, and they've addressed these issues, that there are negatives that go with the application of solar power to different things. And the one of them said something about putting a solar tree in front of the North Church. And I thought to myself, that won't fly. That there are too many tourists who want to take a picture of that, but not the tree in the front of it. But it's still a great idea to have a solar tree. I remember driving to Lebanon, New Hampshire on 89, and somewhere in that drive on 89, there is this fake tree that stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, if you actually just gaze at the countryside as you're driving by, you go, whoa, what the heck is that? You know, because it doesn't look like a real tree, but it's made to look like a tree. And it doesn't. So,
Well, that's pretty cool because it kind of,
Communication tower.
hmm?
That's a communication tower.
That what that is?
but if you're talking about
Oh,
like
I've
solar
seen
trees,
those.
then you're not just talking about something that looks super utilitarian sitting off to the side of the road somewhere. Now you're talking about like incorporating it into like public sculpture or something like that, something where it actually becomes part of the community. So I like that.
Yeah, I looked it up in the Singapore garden. It's a landscape feature. They have, I don't know how many, there's a bunch of them. Some of them have solar in them, but they're these really tall, 50 meters tall. And they have, some of them collect rainwater for the garden, some of them have solar, they have different, and they provide shading and cooling, they sound pretty neat. But yeah, you gotta pick the location, like you can't put it, in a block of view or something like that, but they're pretty neat.
Aren't all trees solar trees?
That's true, actually.
That's true. Man-made solar trees.
Becca?
Sorry, I didn't want to skip in front of anyone. So I just wanted to mention, I was so blown away by the letter from Mr. Rose and then the proposals from the students. So I want to celebrate the students' ideas and creativity first of all, but then also Charlie Rose. I mean, so my daughter Maggie's in his class, and several months ago he went through this exercise of having the students do a mock TED Talk, and it was all about sustainable solutions. So I think there's an opportunity to maybe think about also coming up with some sort of acknowledgement or sustainability award in academics for him. And then so that's one thing I just wanted to mention, is that he's clearly, this is a passion, and he's building up these students to present their ideas. And I think the other thing that he seems to be in favor of is giving the kids an opportunity to actually present publicly their ideas. So I was trying to think of some way that we could obviously provide a response, right, to these amazing proposals and say, these are some of the things the city is already incorporating or thinking about, and is there a way to just acknowledge some things that we'd like to take on, perhaps, as a city. So there's a lot in there, for sure.
Larry?
Dan, I'm not only speaking to you, but the Eco Club in general should get these kids' names.
I just sent a text to our Miss McGlinchey, and I literally said, these are amazing, we need these 8th graders in our club next year. And I go, can I please send them an email? So I will be sending them an email and recruiting them too. And then also, I was thinking, it would be interesting too, like if Eco Club was able, because recognizing that, I know if I was in 8th grade and these high schoolers are like, were reaching out and being like, this is awesome, like that would be like amazing feeling. So I feel like that we definitely, like, Eco Club will reach out too, and then, maybe next year we can get them to come to these meetings.
8th graders a project to work on for their whole high school.
I was like, it would be nice to talk to them about like what we do too, because I think I just looked at it and it's a lot, like they did a really, really good job. There's a lot of information.
I wasn't doing stuff like that in 8th grade, I'll tell you that much.
Send a copy of your email to the science teacher, Chris Rose.
Yeah, and I was also gonna email the teacher as well. I just sent a text to McGlinchey about how
You only picked 7 out of, I don't know how many 8th grade students there are down there, but he picked probably the top 7.
Yeah.
There was probably, in the others, a lot of redundancy. So that's probably his reason for only picking 7.
8th grade, I was eating bagels all day long.
What I think is interesting about all the proposals is they universally involve solar. And so these students have really looked at this, and it's interesting when you have a large group of students all come to the same conclusion. They're basically all saying, okay, this is something that would not be difficult for us to do. So then the question becomes, how does the city, first of all, incentivize this for private businesses? Because you can't necessarily mandate it, but you can incentivize it. So what steps do we have as far as land use goes, and provisions around that, or even tax incentives we have to incentivize solar on rooftops? What do we have in the way that's getting in the way of that? So we have a few things as far as land use and HDC codes. What can you do for solar on top of buildings in a historic district and in the downtown overlay district? Especially, that would especially impact the proposal around using solar as awnings. That would be particularly challenging in those districts. But, so what do we have as far as obstacles that are getting in the way of this? What are we doing at the city to incentivize this on other buildings for the city itself? So what do we have in the CIP budget? In the long run, are we thinking about that? Adding solar to the rest of our city buildings beyond the high school in the CIP budget? Because that was another part of the proposal. There's so many things that we can do at the city level to take this very seriously. And I will say that, in casual conversations with other city councilors, these are things that we have talked about to some degree. Things about what is disincentivizing people, what's getting in the way, And what can we do to shift that thinking so we're incentivizing solar? And this is especially for me, there's especially a crossover here because I sit on an energy advisory already. So we're already talking about community power and how we get there. And so the city's already talking about, like, how do we provide power that is renewable to our population? But it'd be great if we were also thinking the back end of that too. How do we generate?
Call myself. I think it's a great idea, and where I was kind of going with this is, I don't want to dissuade them from these full big projects, but like, it would be really cool if they got solar at the middle school, right? Like if that is like a completion of like their work and like their time at that school, which is probably in line with what a lot of, you know, other people want across the city buildings, but like when the high school like empowered themselves to get rid of styrofoam, right? Like did it on their own, you know, turf. And if they could, it's almost in some ways a smaller project, right? Like going against these private entities is a whole, you know, whole different can of worms. But if they kind of small size that, which is still a big project, but like figure out with the right resources that we're all talking about, being like, hey, listen, we brought solar to a whole new building in Portsmouth, and it goes beyond the high school, beyond the water plant. I think that would be kind of a cool little way to tie the bow on and almost hopefully kickstart other discussions, right? Then you could have like newspaper coverage and they can kind of call out the goodness that these kids did and then try to amplify that message beyond that one thing, but it's kind of just slowly kind of continuing to march for it and hopefully like kicks off something bigger. Aubrey?
I think that's a great idea, especially with the middle school because it just went through a large renovation that made it a more efficient building. My only hesitation with solar generally is I think part of the reason why so many of those are on there is because solar is a very visible thing that people see. You can see it on rooftops around and it makes you think, oh, efficiency, that's a solar thing. So it's an easy thing to grasp for. In the industry I work in, which is sustainable buildings, the kind of maybe less or a little bit pejorative term is the screen dressing, you know. It's like you could have a really crappy building that's using a ton of energy, you throw some solar panels on it, now all of a sudden it's a green building, where it's still not a very efficient building. So I don't want to put too much focus on just things like that without looking at the whole systematic approach to bring the energy usage down, because the most efficient kilowatt is one you don't have to use at all.
One of the things that was brought up for using solar is that before you put solar up there, you make sure you've got a roof that's going to last another 20 or 30 years before you go ahead and put solar up there, because solar lasts around 25 years.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to be putting it up and taking it down, because that just increases the cost of getting the solar action.
That's why I think the middle school is important, because it's, you know, recently done. Library's also done, so theoretically, like, that's a really interesting area. You could do those two and potentially set up like a charging station as well, right? And then it kind of starts to build from there, right? It's downtown, that's prime location. Teachers have electric cars. Like, I think it can, even that one project could be, you know, library, middle school, and a charging station or two. Like, that is.
Yeah. And also very much should be a focus on the new police station that's we're just starting to think about. You know, should build the infrastructure in there for electric police cars, for example, and the whole roof should be solar.
That's a question that has come to me. They're doing a Bridge Street lot right now. Is that being piped for solar? So we get solar, receive solar, and then we have charging stations there?
They're putting in conduits for future charging stations. Solar would have to be some sort of, like, one of the ideas with like an awning or something that you could add after.
I was going to say, a lot of the cities and towns we've been looking at have done solar over parking lots, so it's a whole solar field. And I didn't want to lose track of what Rebecca said about something that we can do in the near future for the teacher and the students to keep their interest up, and whether there's an award or have them come to city council, or, I don't know the best thing to do, but get the newspaper to interview them, I don't know.
Yeah.
Would we maybe want to form like a subcommittee to read these more thoroughly, and then I think someone was talking about comparing them to current energy policy, or what Councilor Denton was proposing? and then they can make a plan from there, whether to, you know, involve newspaper, et cetera.
So are you going to chair the subcommittee?
Or, you know what? I mean, I have no idea what the energy policy is right now, but I am on board.
What's the timing for to kind of read back to council? Or you're saying, Dr. Stratton?
Well, what's your question?
What's the timing that they want kind of our feedback, I think, back to
They're
the
looking
council?
for a report back, right?
To the city council?
That's what the council asked for, yeah.
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 It wasn't stated at the
It
time.
wasn't
No.
stated. What I was thinking was, we are also been asked to give feedback to the council of what we as a committee are recommending. And I was thinking the one thing we have, the most valuable thing, is time. And so I'm thinking, what if we, and Laura Lee, if the committee were to give them, they were practicing for a TED Talk, so this could be a TED Talk, 5-minute TED Talk to the city council on summarizing their ideas and how they synergize with the energy plan.
All right.
And that would be, if we did that, and we could couple their presentation with where our current committee is doing in terms of just updating some of our, I don't know if it would be helpful to do the CAP where we've done, just do a 10, 15 minute, here's what we're working on, here's some of the things we're looking at, and we could do a report out from the subcommittee. And we're saying all of these things are coming together because we want to create the climate that is going to, with joy and celebration, create those things that are going to be healthy for all of us. There's enough down stuff. Here's where we have that are positive things that are going on. Here's our thinking. And that's kind of where I'm thinking about report to the city council. And when Kate, you would probably know what would that look like in terms of, would it be helpful to the council? Would it be, if we had a 15-minute report, when or not at all? Using the 3 gates. We want it to be true. We want it to be needed. We want it to be kind to your time and energy.
So I have 2 things here. If we include a report back, say, like a TED Talk type process with the middle schoolers, I think we need to be really conscious of timing. I don't know what the last day of school is, but our city council meetings in June are the 6th and the 21st. And the 6th may be difficult, just because that's budget approval. The 21st would be better timing, but school, I'm guessing, gets out that week.
It's out like before.
17th is when we get out.
Okay, so that would be a challenge for these students. That's the only thing that I would caution on. Beyond that, I think the council is accustomed to getting report backs from committees. Some committees report back every 6 months, some report back at the end of the year. Usually there's a written report, maybe there's just a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation to the council. It's completely reasonable, and it would be really good to have an update at the council level for process and where we are in the process, especially after the 6th. So I would say, like, aim for June 21st, or even if the committee wanted to report back in early July, either one, so you have a 6-month report back to the council. And that presentation doesn't even have to be 15 minutes. You know, usually it's 5 to 10 minutes.
You know, I was going to suggest that this committee has to report to the council, and that we keep that separate from the middle school presentation, because I think it will be, I think they'll steal the show. And we have a lot to cover. And I know when the mayor came to this committee, he asked us to keep in touch with the council. So I think we really are due for that.
maybe a suggestion, sorry. I didn't mean to-
Oh, no, you can go. There you go.
A suggestion, I totally agree, Effie, and that maybe, since City Council has asked us to kind of take on this information and this letter and these proposals from these students, maybe a nice first step would be to invite them to come here
Yep.
and present. They can each take 4 to 5 minutes. And then we come prepared, knowing where our renewable energy policy is, what's happening with community power, where we are with the climate action plan, because then they can ping pong questions off of us as to maybe what's possible, and then kind of come up with next steps. But
Would that mean
might
though
be a
that
little
our
bit
report would be
easier
like
for
in
them.
July or something? Our report would be later if we wanted
Our
them to come to our next meeting?
Our report from the Sustainable Practices
Yeah.
Committee back to council,
Mhm.
possibly. See how it goes with having a good discussion and give them a chance to present and.
Our next meeting will probably be after they're out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that
Mhm.
makes a difference.
So
Yeah.
I'll plan on like from an
Absolutely
eco club side of things. I'll probably end up reaching out to them like this week, just so that because they'll probably be on their emails when school gets out. They're probably not even gonna look at them. But
blame them.
yeah, so I mean, I don't know how we'd want to invite, but I think having them, if they're interested, having them come to that next meeting and like, because also like putting an 8th grader or like how young they are in front of city council can be really scary.
I thought of that.
I've spoken in front of city council before and I always get nervous, and if I was an 8th grader, I don't even know if I would go for it. So I think bring them here first and like going through what they have to say and just making them kind of feel like we're on their side of things, and then bringing it to that point like later on if we want to. But I don't know how we want to ask them to. I mean, I could include it in my email, but also I can just go from an eco club side of things. I don't either or.
Were you your hair? or did you-
Oh, yeah, just the hair.
you just
Were you
walked-
playing with your hair or did you have a question?
You just walked the couch. I like that idea, and I think we do have it to our meeting, and we're in June. It will probably be after school, but I think if we had them here, and rather than one, I was thinking that they might have any of the, they could select who might be around and who would like to come and present and represent them. And I'd say it could be more than one. And we could give them 15 minutes and they could have a joint talk or whatever it might be useful.
Yeah.
To us. And-
Do we want to like reach out to them? Like, are we reaching out to the kids themselves, or are we reaching out to the teacher to really?
Yeah, I reach out to the teacher and say, I wouldn't set the teacher up at the end of the year to get the kids all involved. I would say, he's very enthusiastic, and I'm sure he's trying to close out the school year in
Yeah.
a way. And I might suggest, if you're writing to him, that our group was open to having them come and make a presentation, if that would be useful to where he sees the kids at.
Yep.
And you can name the meeting, which is June
23rd.
23rd, that they could come, and he could certainly accompany them, and just give us the.
Okay.
and that's what I.
So should I reach out an email, or is that something that like you guys want to do?
I'm fine with your doing it. This is just an idea, we're forming it.
If you could do it, Darla, that would be
Yeah, I'll do it.
actually
And then, but I was thinking too, I could always like email the kids, because like also we can come from like a high schooler side of it, be like, oh, you're coming here next year, like we want to get you involved. But then also like I'm part of the, like I go to the committee meetings, like we'd love to have you, we read your letters, like we'd love to have you come in and present. Like that'd be, and put it more as like an option rather than like your teachers making you do it, because if it's like your teachers making you do it, it's not necessarily out of their want. It might be
Yeah.
like your teacher be like, oh, you got to go do
My
it.
feeling is that Chris, you're going to be, he said he wanted this recorded so his class could see it. And I think most good teachers, and I'm assuming
Yeah.
that, would not make it it would be something where.
It would be something where they have the choice.
Kids own.
Yeah.
If you're doing that kind of thing, kids would
Exactly.
own it.
And it's in the summer, so.
I'm
Yes.
making that an
The
assignment.
band. But she plays in the band. You're directing the band, but she plays in the band. She wants to do what she wants to do, and you're telling her to march the other way.
Let me see, is that what you're experiencing?
No.
So,
I think we have a good plan.
yeah.
I did have a couple of questions about the committee. Is anybody here educated on energy policy for the city? Know about it for the most part? Looking kind of over at you.
Well, I would hope so. Somebody in the room.
Yeah.
Energy policy for the city.
Just what you guys were referring to and to comparing it to what they had proposed and seeing where they synergized and matched up essentially.
Well, there's one student that talked about the power purchase agreement, which was, I mean, I don't know where they got it from, but they were right on target. That's what we
Yeah.
do with the water plant, and that's what we look at for new projects too. So that part of it was right on. In terms of other energy policy, they didn't really get into it too much. But yeah, I think between Brian and I, and probably others that are working on future energy policy, that we have a pretty good sense.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'll send
Yeah.
like an email afterwards.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good on that topic, so we're going to roll right into renewable energy opportunity. I don't know how that is a little bit separate, but let's dive in. Who put this on the agenda? Anyone?
Why is this on here? It's on this.
Does this have anything to do with the power?
Community power?
I put it on.
Peter, was this our
for
conversation
Steve. Yep.
at the
Yep.
last subcommittee
It's
meeting?
Steve's. I'll let Steve go.
So, it's, okay, so I guess it's just a question that was brought to my attention, and I just wanted to get a little clarification on it. In a conversation that I stumbled into a month or two ago, someone had made the claim to me that the city had ordinance of some kind preventing utility scale solar installations or solar farms. I was not aware that that was the case, and I asked Peter about it at the last subcommittee meeting, and I just kind of wanted to bring it up to clarify any misunderstandings that there may be around what might prevent it.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to do it, what are the, because we discussed the options for the city doing such a thing versus private, and there's land use stuff, so.
Yeah, it's a big land use question. I mean, it's kind of a stretch to say it's prohibited, but the way our zoning ordinance works, if it's not specifically listed, then you could say it's prohibited. So the way our zoning ordinance is, it's a permissive ordinance, so it has to be stated that you can have 3 units on this lot versus a single-family house, residential lot that can only have 1 unit on it. There's ways around that in terms of like a variance or things like that. But in terms of the, process, if someone has a project that they want to do and it's not allowed in the ordinance, usually it gets looked at closely, especially something new like that, it would get looked at and there'd be, options. There hasn't really been people exploring that. I would have heard about it. The big limitation is there's a cap on the net metering, so you can't necessarily put a huge solar farm and then just sell it off. Unless you're a municipality now, they just passed a law where municipalities can do that. I forget the amounts and how it works, but, so it could be put into the ordinance, but I guess there's a lot of questions about where you'd want to allow that and where it would go and what would it be in wetland areas, would it be in open space areas, would it prevent other developments? So, yeah, I mean, solar farms might be great in a really big rural area. We don't have a lot of rural land or farms that would accommodate that.
That's always great.
So my scenario.
I guess just to follow up is, when you think about a use, you think about a primary use versus accessory use. And if you're doing it as a primary use, then yeah, the ordinance doesn't say you can do it as a primary use. That's not to say that you couldn't figure out a way to do it, but if you had a farm or a big field and you wanted to put solar in it, that's an accessory use, so that's different, so you probably could do it. I don't think that would be prohibited.
So in my, scenario in my mind, I always thought it would be great to have, because I have some personal experience with the Jones Ave dump. I used to go out there and mow it. And I was, what a cool field it is, but it is just a capped landfill.
Yep.
And we have solar at Madbury at the port, and, you know, so what if, for instance, the city said, oh, we're gonna take this and do something with it. We're gonna put solar over this capped landfill. Could that be done?
Yeah.
The argument is, could it versus would we want to do it? I know there are other maybe possible uses for that land as far as keeping it natural and having public access and that. But if we made that decision and said, we want to pursue this, there's nothing preventing that from happening. Is that correct? Would that be correct?
Right, if the city, you know, people in the city or the city government decide.
If there was popular support, yes.
There was popular support, yeah. Well,
But-
there'd also be requirements to get the DES to approve it because it's a capped landfill, it's a groundwater management zone. So there'd be other requirements beyond that, but and it has a, so it's a possibility.
But that would be different from a private person wanting to do something.
That's right.
So just to clarify what you're saying that there is no area in the city that explicitly has it as an accepted primary use?
That's right.
Okay.
So then, sort of what your person was saying is true then. If it's not explicitly stated, then it's prohibited unless somebody wants to go through a variance process, which can be time-consuming and costly.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true, yeah. But if someone came in and said, hey, we want to put in a giant solar farm, first of all, where's the land that you're going to do this? You'd have to find that land, and, yeah.
And I don't think it's even allowed by state law.
Right.
So I don't know that you could just come put a huge solar farm in on a piece of property and put it on the grid as a private property. Maybe Eversource could, but I don't think a private property.
So it's a little more
I think, I mean, that's.
complicated than just.
At least maybe, that's why I
Yeah.
know what I'm saying.
A few different variables that work.
Right.
My
It must be
thinking,
something where we're really different from New Hampshire to Vermont, 'cause it seems
Oh, yeah.
all over the place.
Right. Net metering laws.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
Kate?
I was to say, it'd be very, very difficult to get the variance, because you'd have to show why you actually needed a variance for this, hardship, and in that case, there's not really hardship.
Well, I guess the point I brought up was too, that there's not a lot of people looking to do that because the value of property that you can put solar panels on is so high in Portsmouth that it's not for the highest and best use of development.
agreed, yeah, agreed. That's why I bring up the Jones Ave thing, because I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
there's nothing happening
Yeah.
there. It's like, brownfield type.
Yeah.
There's no other use for that land right now.
There's been a lot of talk about recreation on it, but, right.
People claim hardship, no clean power.
But something we really should be working on is this accessory usage. The accessory usage on property is something that we really should be thinking about. And I'd love to see this committee thinking about that and making recommendations that go forward to land use, the land use committee that's looking at changes to the zoning code.
And it might be in there on accessory. I have to go look.
Yeah, we just need it in zones that are, when you add it in zones that are difficult, like in the HDC and in the overlay districts, then it's much easier to get these things approved. What you find is, like, when something's not in the code, and that's been the challenge around EV chargers, it's not in the code, so you have to go and get special permission, so once it's in the code, you don't need the special permission to get it. You don't need that variance. And so that's the goal, is if you make sure these things are there, especially for large buildings, then it'll be a lot easier to get approvals.
Maybe we should think about that. Looking at the code.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing that the climate action plan is going to explore
Yeah.
in greater detail. And what other communities do and what's successful and where they've hit problems and issues with people trying to put them in places that doesn't work or.
Exactly.
Anything else on that? Is there any other business that people want to talk about? We're kind of flying through the agenda tonight. Bert?
I need help. I would like to pass this book around for everybody to sign, and I would like it to be nurturing and good and truthful. And so I need somebody to help me finish this sentence. And I thought, or any ideas, I was going to say, Maya, thank you for your contribution to our Blue Ribbon Committee on Sustainable Practices. We wish you the best as you move on to your next phase of life, or we wish you the best. But I don't want to be too, is there anybody who writes something better? I'd like us to have.
You can just
I
say,
couldn't hear who it was for, I'm sorry.
This is for Maya.
Oh, okay,
This would have been her last meeting.
Okay.
She's been on the committee for a year. She's
Yeah.
practicing her sport now, so she's missed out. But I'd like to give her
Yeah.
on part of our committee and have her sign it. But I didn't want it to, I'm not good at writing, well,
you can say like, good luck at college. Where's she going to college?
I was
She's going to
gonna say-
NYU.
I didn't
She's
want-
going to NYU. It could be like, good luck in the big city or something. You're like,
All right, so
something
see,
fun.
I didn't know if she was going to college, and I didn't want to assume it.
Yes, she is going to college and she's going to NYU.
All right, so then that's what I needed, all right? So to identify, thank you for your contributions to our Blue Ribbon Committee on Sustainable Practices. Good luck at MI.
NYU.
NYU.
Good luck, no, good luck, is that? She's not luck, she's powerful, she doesn't need luck.
That's what you should write.
Yeah.
He needs a voice memo.
Tell me, say Jeff, how would you write that?
All the best.
We know you will be successful at NYU.
May your
Don't forget to
power
visit.
take you through NYU successfully. How about
Say that
that?
again?
May your power take you through NYU successfully.
May
And don't forget about
your,
Ben and Darla.
Don't forget about the Blue Ribbon Committee.
Don't forget about Eco Club.
may your,
Come visit.
I hope the Eco Club at NYU is as good as the one at.
I will write that.
Let your experiences at City Hall guide you in this new phase of life.
I'll try
vlogs
to
in
do
here.
something while we, and then I'll pass it around because we have time to do that.
I've got a bunch of really quick things. Portsmouth Smart Growth, and I'm not sure who else is putting on a community power event
That was going to be
on
my note, my other
June
business.
29th, Wednesday at 3S. So it would be great if we could all be there.
What time is
When
that?
again?
June 29th, I think it's 6:30 or 7, I don't know the time. It's on their website now. You can register on
Where's it?
portsmouthsmartgrowth.org.
6:30?
Portsmouth Smart Growth.
June 29th.
The second thing was, I was at,
Just
I'm
to
sorry.
capture, what was the event called again?
Community Power.
You
There's
say
gonna
it was
be
29th?
people,
Literally.
they're not having all the same people that spoke to city council in August. It's a slightly different group, and somebody from Lebanon, somebody from Hanover. I don't remember the speakers, but it looks good.
It'll
And
be
then-
great.
It's gonna be
Looks
great.
great. And then at the TEDx Portsmouth, a couple of people were there. There was one presenter, and she spoke about UNH had, I don't know what it's called, but a tidal energy thing on Memorial Bridge. And we had talked about highlighting things like that. So I just wanted to mention it, so if anyone has connections with whoever's doing that, and we can follow up more. Brian, you probably know about it with all your Think Blue and everything.
That's,
That's how,
yeah.
yeah,
that's-
okay.
WSCA is on the 30th.
But I know a little bit about it. It's not an active energy generation, but
Oh, it's not.
no, but it is, it's intended to be
Oh, I have it too.
a test platform to put energy generation under there and to figure out what works. I think a lot of concern with power generation,
We'll find out.
tidal rivers and rivers is fouling. And so it's, I don't know if they've actually tested technologies yet, but it's a big National Science Foundation, I think, grant that they have. And UNH has a whole committee that has been working on it. So
Is there
There's an
any,
outreach person.
is
that-
there any
I forget her
sign
name.
there or anything?
I think there's a little plaque there.
There
a little
is?
sign.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll have
That
to look
talks
for
about
it. So I just wanted to mention that. And then there was some housekeeping I wanted to mention. The notes from last month were fantastic. I think Ben did them.
Ben did them.
Thank you. But I wanted to say, I would appreciate it if we make part of the notes when the next meeting is, because some confusion came up with
Oh, I should have done that.
John's email. Well, no one's done that before, Ben, so, don't feel bad. But I think it would be good to make that part of our notes and the note taker name, submitted by Ben, whatever. And then the time of the meeting, I had a question because we start the recording after we do our opening question, right? We don't start the recording till we've had that time, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's calling in, like they're interested in sustainability and want to learn about the committee, I think it says it starts at 6:30.
They can see the meeting started. I started. They can see the meetings going. They're in the waiting room.
So when we have our
They're actually, they'd be in the meeting. It just won't be recorded. So they,
Oh, okay.
they'll be
So
just like us.
they hear it, okay, because I didn't want people coming and thinking,
Oh, no,
well, what is
there's-
this? Is it
yeah.
6:30?
If
Okay,
they come, if they log in, then I let them in.
right,
I just don't start the recording.
okay.
And I also record with this camera. It's a different system that doesn't use Zoom. Because the producers just like to have two copies in case one doesn't work as well, or the sound doesn't work as well, or whatever.
Great,
I try to remember to do both.
great. And then on my list was the city council update, which we didn't really finish talking about. I feel like it would be good to have some plan for that. When the mayor came, he asked for regular updates, could be quarterly, could be every 6 months, but we're due. And we've had a lot going on, so I think it'd be worthwhile. Yeah, right.
Just get in line and one after the other.
The presentation we had from the subcommittee last month, was it? About climate action plans. I think the council would be interested in that. I mean, we present it probably a little bit differently, but a lot of that. And then what we're talking about with this new app, and we've got a lot going on. So I don't know how that happens, or Bert, if you take care of that. Kate, you've got your hand up, so.
If one of the city councilors knows that we have an update coming up, we can make sure that the city clerk knows, but then ultimately, any kind of report or request would go either through staff or through the city clerks, just to make sure it's on the agenda for a committee report back, through the chair of the committee. So that's usually kind of the process. And really, these reports come in different forms. And, some committees submit a written report to the council, and then they also do a little presentation. Others can come and just do the presentation piece. I would say it's really helpful for the council to have something in their hands, even if it's a printout of a PowerPoint presentation. We get a lot of presentations that are just a PowerPoint with explanations, but it's helpful to have that because it's kind of a reminder. Always, you can take your notes there. You know exactly what was discussed. So.
Now, I was listening, June 1st meeting is not good, second meeting. The second or the third, where would you see us being most useful?
I just said that the 6th would be more difficult because that's the budget night where we adopt the budget. So I imagine there's already quite a bit on that. I know there's quite a bit at the introduction of that meeting, which the committee reports come kind of at the beginning. So we already have a lot on the agenda. That's why I said maybe the 21st would be better. That's the second meeting in June. The next meeting of the council, I believe, is the 11th of July, following that.
My feeling was, unless Effie, I think the PowerPoint was good, that we're not going to meet before that. So I would say we put it on the agenda for our next meeting and plan to now tell them we will give it, so we fix our mind, we'll do it on the July 11th. And just say we will give the report, and since you have the slide is there somebody who can put that on the agenda, what do we need to do? Or can Kate, you just went through the process.
Yeah.
I was still focusing on something else.
No, it's fine. I can talk to Peter and we'll
Yeah, I-
coordinate.
If you want to do a report, I mean, probably we should talk about when we want to do it, when we're talking about what we're going to do, because depending on how much we want to do, we might only be ready by July 11th. We have one meeting to prepare for it, sometimes we want to do more.
Well, what I was going to
We want to bite
suggest,
off more than we can chew, I guess.
right, so what I'm going to say is, Effie, since I think you've got a lot going, and I'd be happy to talk with you a little bit, is there any, because I think we should do that and Portsmouth Climate Solutions and anything else that should go, that we think we should put on that, just to give them an update.
I would think the council would be really interested in the climate action plan discussions that the committee's been having, the subcommittee's been having, because that has been a priority for the council. And so I think it would be important. And by that date, we will have already adopted the budget, which means we've adopted the funding for the climate action plan, because the adoption happens June the 6th. So then it would be really good timing for the committee to go, or for the council to sit back and say, oh, so this is what they're doing, this is the direction we're going. We know when that funding's going to be allocated.
Then I would say, Effie, I think with that slideshow that was put on, maybe put one or two on as part of the community engagement, that you could tell whatever we come on with the Portsmouth Climate Solutions, because you have both information. I would say we're ready to go, pretty much.
Well, we can talk at the June meeting about that.
Well, you could do a quick dry run through the June meeting, and we could add or subtract. How does that sound?
That sounds good, and I think the subcommittee jointly presented that PowerPoint last time, so we can do
So
that
if
again.
it sounds like you want to go on for the July 11th meeting, I can tell the clerk and the city manager that we're interested in that, and make sure they are on board with putting that on that July 11th meeting. If not, they'll tell us, why don't you wait, we have this crazy agenda also then, but that should work. Usually that's plenty of notice. And then we'll have to get something real, rather than a placeholder, but something, it doesn't have to be the whole presentation, just we're definitely going to come and talk about these things on July 11th. That's the week before.
And I don't want anyone to be nervous about presenting from the committee to the council. And we've had one committee already present to us twice this year, because they were kind of newly established from Blue Ribbon to a new committee. The cemetery committee's come back twice with presentations, and they were just informative presentations. They were really helpful, though, for us to know what they were doing and the status of their work.
So to conclude, we'll shoot for the July meeting. We'll do both reports together, and whatever, we can do a dry run and add it to, and just have a simple page printout at that meeting, the next meeting. Okay. And there should be closed.
Water fountains?
I have one item I was going to bring up. So in dealing with kids' sports, I am coaching, so I'm at all these different playgrounds. And one thing I noticed was many of the playgrounds don't have water fountains. So I'm kind of asking the group, and maybe someone in the corner there who maybe specifically deals with water, is there any reason, whether COVID or otherwise, that they're missing? So like, just to continue that point, at Plains, kids play all day Saturday. Some kid went to go fill up a water bottle and he said, I don't have one, so they had to go buy a plastic Gatorade bottle instead. So as we think about sustainability and that sort of stuff, and hydration for the kids, is there any context as to why a lot don't have it?
I don't want to take credit for that, but for the ones that are there, but I was the one that said, why don't we have water bottle fountains? So we started putting them in here.
That's great.
We have them at Leary Field, we have them at the tennis courts, we have them in Fort Tree Island. So what we have this, it's a nice fountain that has both, you can put the bottle in, and it has a drinking fountain as well. We want to put them in Market Square, we want to put them in the other fields. It all is a matter of when these places get an upgrade. So when it comes around to do that. So we've got, I think the next one is going in near Prescott Park somewhere, so we're just sort of, getting them in. We could, I suppose get more aggressive about it, but, the other thing is some places actually don't have the water service to them, so we got to put that in as well.
That sounds great.
I'll talk to our grounds people about that and see if we could maybe get them in a few spots.
Yeah, like Plains comes to mind just because that seems like it's not due for an upgrade for a while. And it seems like a pretty good trafficked area. So that'd be the only,
Well, and what we do is we tack things on to existing projects. So and what comes to mind right now is the skate park, which is just going to be across the street or whatever, just a stone's throw from Plains. You just add to the contractor, if they're going to put one in over there, it's like, okay, you're going to put one in here as well, because and then we have the model and all that.
Are these things that you can shut off during the winter time?
Oh yeah, we shut them off and drain so that it's free.
Plains, they have the concession stand, right?
The water's there, yeah.
Yeah, most likely they have water, and it could be a simple matter of just teeing off the existing
outside,
water line,
yeah.
putting on the other side of the wall, yeah. It depending on where the water line is, yeah. But it could be very simple, yeah, just like that.
Very cool. And do you know if there's been discussions with the schools to do something at their playgrounds as well? Because like a lot of the sports also participate there, and I know that's a different kind of ownership model.
I know the schools have been putting in the inside fountains.
Yeah. Like we practice at New Franklin a couple times a week.
Yeah, the new ball field at Public Works, backside of Public Works.
Yeah, those are great.
They got one there. The downside of that one is, and I go turn it on every now and then, it's out in the middle of nowhere, so it takes a while to get fresh water to that one. It'll get more use, over time, and that'll improve.
Perfect. Good. I didn't know there was a plan, so glad to hear that. Thanks.
Don't they let you play in Rye?
We're not allowed in Rye. They sent to Greenland, Newington, every place except for Rye.
How do them selling plastic bottles? Because isn't that there's the plastic ban, right? So can they technically not sell those?
With the ordinance, did
Yeah.
you say, Darla?
Yeah.
It didn't specifically say single-use water bottles.
Oh, it should.
Not explicitly listed.
There's always more work to be done.
Always more work to be done.
Becca, did you ever get up for something?
I did, just another piece of business.
We should have stickers.
Yeah.
Have time. And Councilor Cook, you might want to speak to this, so. Since the Portsmouth Energy Advisory Committee was spawned from this committee, and I'm still serving as your representative on that, I didn't know if it would be helpful to give a very quick update on the Energy Advisory Committee. So just to jump off what Effie was updating well. So right now we're really in this stage of sort of educating and stakeholder building, and to your point before about Climate Solutions wanting to engage with the community on the climate action plan. Portsmouth Smart Growth is helping us host. We're sort of co-hosting this event at the end of June, and this is just part of sort of our education process, so that the community understands the benefits of community power once we actually hit go. And so that, again, is going to be at the end of June at 3S Art Space.
That's what they
Very exciting. You'll probably get an insert in your water bill in the next few weeks, which outlines, again, it's something that all of our residents read, hopefully, and receive. So there's a quick flyer in there about sort of what is community power. Community power is coming to you. Some of the benefits. This event is listed on there. We've made it really easy for residents to, if they have the ability and they're comfortable, they can go to the city site and get information on this event. We've also gone live with an FAQ on the city site on community power. So if residents have questions about, well, how does this work, and are there risks to it, and et cetera, et cetera. So that should be live now on the city site if you want to go check that out. Very, very basic FAQs. So this is all, again, like I mentioned, we're starting to do some education and engagement, and this is all building towards, eventually building what is called, I think, formally the Electric Aggregation Plan. And this is something that CPCNH, which we are now part of that coalition, the city is. Kevin Charette, I think, is our, formally, I don't know his title, but the board representative from the city of Portsmouth on the CPCNH with Peter Rice as a
Rice is
backup.
his alternate,
His
yeah.
alternate, right?
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of really positive and forward movement on community power. So that's the crux of the update that I wanted to give this committee. Did you have anything that you want to
No,
add?
It was great. I think that the earliest that we're looking at joining would be not this round, but it would be next year. So, so I think that earliest would be like July of 2023 is what we're thinking. And that means, but we have to get everything together before then in order to do that, which is quite a process.
And the coalition still has to get everything together to get started, so that you couldn't even get community power in your community until the coalition gets it started, which, remember the date they
I
set
think
for that?
the best go live date for coalition is April.
April, right, April
2023.
23, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry, what was our target date for joining?
Well, our target date for getting all of our paperwork and everything in, and then we would join it, but we wouldn't be part of it. It takes a while then before you're included in the process. So the initial cities that are kind of being the pioneers in the program are trying to get everything together now for this year. But then the earliest they go live is April. So for us, that would be April 2024 likely is what we're thinking.
there could be like a 6 month, there's like these 6
Could
month
be-
chunks.
Could be October.
You can't
Could-
start it up anytime you want, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and the PUC has to actually approve our electric aggregation plan, so I think we're kind of beholden to falling in line with the PUC. Sorry.
No, it's right. It's because they have to set their rates at certain times of the year, so they only accept people in at certain times of the year. So if we get all of our submission in by next summer, then it will be when they allow us to join.
Yeah.
But being on the coalition, just having a seat at that table helps us be educated about how it's working, learn about how the other communities are doing, not be the first ones to dive in. So it's kind of nice to watch how it goes, but still be a participant actively watching.
You've definitely pilfered a lot of language about how we talk about community power from the current coalition members, which we are now part of as well. And I think, Effie, you were asking, so I know it's Julia Griffin from Hanover. She's the town manager. She will be there. Henry Herndon will be speaking. Sam Evans Brown,
Yeah, I thought so.
right, from Clean Energy, New Hampshire. And then hoping that some of the other maybe local,
Bellow, maybe?
what's that?
Cliff Bellows, too?
I don't think he's on the panel,
Okay.
but I'm hoping that he'll be there. And we're hoping from other local town areas, those from Exeter and Rye that have also been part of this process will be there to maybe answer questions or ask their own questions and be part of the crowd.
Great.
Yeah.
I just had a question. Since the city, as a city, has certain windows where we're able to opt in, does that then cascade down to individual citizens that want to opt in once we've done it as a city? Like there's a open enrollment time once a year that you can do it, and after that you have to wait till the next year, or can you go in any month that you want? Or is that to be determined yet?
That's a good question.
You're automatically in as a resident.
Unless you... you're-
Opt
no,
out.
You can opt out. You're automatically in as a resident if your choice is the power, the standard power provider. But if you have your own, like if you decided you bought from another broker because it's, more advantageous or you want more renewable, right now, like you can do that with a broker. If you're doing that, then you do have to opt in. But I'm not sure about the dates for that. So you either everybody automatically goes in if they're just using Eversource power, or you have to opt in if you're not. And then once you're in, then there's gonna be choices within the Portsmouth Community Power of different kinds of power you can choose from. So you can have like the least expensive option that may not have as much renewable, or the most renewable, and maybe something in between. And those have different pricing, and that's a big part of what the coalition does, is goes out and finds all that and bundles it. And then I think a lot of communities may be similar, but it'll be Portsmouth Community Power that you're getting it from, and you'll get your choices there. But I don't know how they will allow you to switch, if it's every month you get to do it, or, I think
I would-
only the buy-in is the.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm probably speaking out of school here, but, or that's even the saying, I don't know. But anyway, because I'm mixing up. But I would think there would probably be, it'd be fairly restrictive, because the whole point is that the more people you have in the community power system, the better rates, the more competitive you can be. So I wonder, that's a great question to ask, is if you decide to opt out, how long do you have to wait before you could potentially opt back in? No.
To opt in.
Or to opt in.
I am one of those people who's getting it from someone
You're a
else.
third
to get
party
it.
So
provider.
can you turn the switch as soon as it's available, or do you have to wait? I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
good question. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you come on the 29th, maybe we can get that answered.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Well, it'll be recorded too, so, yeah.
I think, is that the 28th, the 29th?
29th.
The Wednesday.
They have a weird date listed. They have the date listed wrong, but in the narrative it says the 29th.
Okay, so it's the 29th.
Where is it listed
I
incorrectly?
went on their website and it
On
said
their
Wednesday, the
website.
28th.
Portsmouth Smart Growth?
Smart growth, yes.
I might have misspoken. Hold on.
I might be wrong as well.
I had it in my calendar as the 29th.
Yeah, I
And on their page, under events, they have it listed Wednesday, June 28th, with the, Wednesday's actually the 29th. And then if you look at the
Oh.
narrative, it says on the 29th. So,
All right, we'll
so I
get
think it's
that
just a,
fixed.
So I'll move that to the 29th. I
It
got
should be the 29th, Wednesday, the 29th.
Thank you for clearing
But we
that
will
up.
absolutely make sure that that's fixed. Thank you for
Yes.
catching that.
Yeah.
And then we'll check the city site as well. Okay,
I was actually thinking May 29th, I may be wrong.
okay.
All right. Any other topics? Yes.
At the water, John, you sent some really good ideas on water efficiency, so future meeting, maybe we can talk about that a bit more, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can send it out ahead of next meeting, maybe. We can, if you, I don't know if you're going to be here then.
Yeah.
But maybe we can make that one of the agenda items. Barbara, if you
Not
want.
urgent.
That's my banana.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yep, look at this.
Thanks. All right. With that,
I'll give it.
we are adjourned, so we can stop recording and we'll do the takeaway after that, right?
Yes. I'll stop it, sorry.
And then just kind of for notes, next month, Eco Club facilitating, and then Counselor Denton is recording. Just calling out. Schedule's up to date. Very good. Go around. What is your takeaway from tonight's meeting? We're going to switch directions this way and go to Bert.